All right, well, welcome everyone to our weekly Wednesday webinar series. Thank you so much for joining us. Real quick, if you can't hear me or lose connection during the session, head up to that audio tab, click on the sound check. That will resolve most of your issues. If that doesn't work, try switching between the way you're called in, whether it's computer or phone, just swap those out. Finally, if that doesn't work, log out of GoTo and log back in. That usually resolves 99% of the issues. And if you're having a lot more trouble, there is a contact number down there for you. How do I get my CEUs? Please watch the entire session. Take the survey that pops up at the end. That same survey gets emailed to you an hour later. Please only take it once. Even if you don't need CEUs, we love your feedback, so fill it out, please. We don't have a session next week, but we're going to be releasing a really cool video on our YouTube channel of a home tour that we did almost a year ago when it was safe to go out. So check that out next week. And then June 3rd, we'll be back on with our friend Ken Semlar for offsite modular construction and green building. And real quick, our member spotlight for the week, the Baker Meyer Smart House renovation in Chicagoland, Illinois, is targeting LEED v4.1 Platinum and a HERS index of -8, making it pre-certified to hit our Zero Energy Capable program. We applaud our members for their diligence to building better. If you support our mission, want instant access to all of our webinars with no registration and discounts on LEED or Green Star on your next project, check out the register, become a member link down there today. All right, well, welcome everyone to Imagining Housing as a Service, our free CE webinar series. This course is approved for one continuing education unit, GBCI, AIBD, BPI non-whole house, as well as pending with the AIA Health, Welfare, and Safety, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. Today, I will be your moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I am the executive director here at the nonprofit, the Green Home Institute. What we're going to be talking about today is just the idea is how can we look at housing from a different perspective and how it serves our needs. And we're really excited to be talking about that. And real quick, before we get started, our sponsor, number one sponsor, introducing the all-new Rheem Prestige, an energy efficient, quiet, and all-electric hybrid heat pump water heater. The future of water heating is finally here. 50, 65, or 80 gallons, the Rheem Prestige can serve many of your clients' different needs, all the way up to 370% energy efficiency. Rheem stands behind their product with a 10-year warranty, quieter than your typical loud heat pump, and utility rebates or tax incentives typically apply. One thing that we're really excited about is the ability to switch between ducted or a ductless version, depending on your humidity challenges, your needs, and what climate you're in. It makes the product a lot more feasible. And also it helps your clients stay smart with service notifications, potential leak detection, and just still make sure you want to put that drip pan in there so you don't have a bunch of leaks. One cool thing about heat pumps too is that utilities are using them as battery systems. So if you're in a special location like California or other more progressive areas, you can check that out with Rheem today. And then our second tier sponsor, Water Furnace International. Water Furnaces uses the natural heating and cooling of the earth through ground source heat pump technology, which creates more energy efficient heating and cooling on the planet, as well as helps work with hot water like the Rheem Prestige. All sorts of different applications this can be used in, from ducted, ductless, radiant, combo, boiler replacement, dual fuel. And one thing, you can drill different strategies here as to whether, depending on how your land is set up. And there's even new strategies where they can drill interiorly in the building in more urban locations. You can learn more over at geothermalforall.com. All right, well, I want to welcome our speaker here, Heidi Poscher. She is 4M's lead founder and focuses on strategy and business development. She is a serial entrepreneur, deal maker, and developer in the Ann Arbor area. No matter what project she is working on, she brings forth a certain zest and gusto to the table, elevating the whole team in the process. So with that, Heidi, I welcome you and I ask you to take it away.
Great, thanks very much, Brett. I'm here today to talk about ideas around housing as a service. Many people probably are familiar with the idea of the as a service tagline in relation to software as a service. And so the similarities are that we're borrowing this phrase from the software industry, as it relates mostly to the disruption of the business model based on the new delivery capability or financial or other benefits that are related to the customer. So whereas housing and software are not all that similar, the idea of changing a business model to approach a new segment of the customer, to deliver customer benefits in a different way, is very much aligned in terms of the service offering. So just like software as a service has had 20 years in their industry to make all sorts of changes and improvements, the idea of housing as a service is very nascent, and we're very early on. So what I expect is, as this idea catches on and more developers or property managers experiment with the idea, there will be all sorts of innovation around the concept, and over time it will change very much. Right now, we envision housing as a service as the bringing together of benefits that wouldn't typically be offered in a package, and offering them to specific groups of consumers. Sometimes those are called cohorts, and those consumers have a specific need or a reason to gravitate to an offering, a service offering built around housing. And so that's what we're exploring right now, and I'm here to talk about that today. And let's see here, trying to get my computer to work. Eric, I'm having a hard time getting my...
I think you are on the PDF. Are you?
No, I don't know.
I think if you go to the top, there we go.
There we go. Whew. All right. So sorry about that. So that's our introduction. So housing as a service. What are some of the things that we would try to bring into housing as a service in terms of building an offering around the residents and the needs that specific groups of people would have. So when we started taking a look at this concept of housing as a service, we really opened our minds to considering any and all of these groups or cohorts that could be organized in terms of their needs and what kind of add-ons we could offer around the housing package to offer additional benefits, obviously to drive more revenue, but also to leverage the ability of a larger group of people needing the same kind of thing. So leveraging economies of scale, being able to orchestrate deals that individuals might not be able to orchestrate on their own, but when you're buying or working with a vendor on behalf of a larger group of people, we could orchestrate lower cost and also enhance delivery. So that was an important aspect. So just a little bit of history about our company. We're real estate developers. We have a growing portfolio of properties that we've developed and then manage. So when we started taking a look at this, we did kind of come at it from a traditional rental situation or perspective. But over time, we feel like the idea of rental is changing because of some of the consuming and buying habits of younger people today. People we've noticed are a lot less committed to the idea of necessarily owning real estate. And the whole idea is, hey, maybe I'll just occupy real estate and look to other forms of investment to grow my personal assets. Whereas, traditionally, real estate has been a way that people have, at least for a portion of their personal wealth, made investments. So that's a dynamic that really has lent itself to this way of thinking as well. So when we started taking a look at who would be candidates for people that that might be interested in this whole housing as a service idea, where we're bringing in extra value and charging a different kind of rate structure, after different cohorts under consideration, we decided that young professionals might be a good cohort for us to explore offering service to. So what we've done in our latest development is for the residents, we've added additional components that would be beneficial to people that are starting their own companies, people that are launching freelance or creative careers, people that are interested in growing skill sets that are organized around the digital economy. And we, in that facility, we've combined living space, working space, shared mobility space. So things that we can leverage around that are costs associated with fiber, costs associated with utilities, costs associated with car ownership, and combine them all into a single environment. Now that we're dealing with public health issues, we've made some modifications to our program. But basically, that gives you the kind of the background of how we got into this whole idea of housing as a service. There we are. There's two people from our team anyway. Forum is a company of about 10 people, and we are managing this housing as a service project in addition to a lot of other things we do. But there's the team. There's Eric. He's on the line too. Okay, so housing as a service for the specifics of this project that we're working on is presented as a strategy that we can help use to leverage costs and benefits for entrepreneurs. So again, young people that are interested in the digital economy, young people that are starting their own companies or starting their own careers that leverage the digital economy, evolving capabilities having to do with video production or podcasts or anything that would happen in a creative lab. All of those are brought into the housing environment by virtue of the way that this is constructed. So we have a centralized location. We call ourselves an ecosystem because we're really covering all of the domains of life in general. So living, working, mobility. We're bundling that up as a service. So when we reach out to people and talk about how they might fit into our community, where people live, people work, they share micro mobility, they share cars, we have a shuttle. We talk about the services that might be of interest to them. So it's not just your rent, it's not just the cost of your workspace, it's not just the avoided cost of owning a car, but we're also including all of the costs of fiber and a fiber build. And that's a really good example of how we're leveraging the community to do something extra at a lower cost. Most people can't afford to have a fiber build right to their home or right to their office, but by consolidating a greater number of people into this campus style setting, we're able to incorporate fiber and offer that everybody who's on our campus access to fiber. We have a pretty significant network management capability, so we offer 24/7, 365 days a year, personalized network services. We have all sorts of private networks that people can use to run their business, to download content for entertainment. So that's a great example of how we're using the purchasing power to have an enhanced offering at a lower cost. So everything's plug and play. when we reach out to folks and talk to them about whether or not they're a good candidate to be on our campus, it's with the idea in mind that you bring a couple suitcases, your personal possessions, you show up on the campus with a specific reason to be there. And for this cohort, the reason to be there relates to professional development, personal development in terms of your career, being able to create networks with peers and with mentors that can help you advance and work toward meeting your goals. But definitely don't bring a bunch of furniture, don't bring your pots and pans. Just show up on campus to plug in and do your thing, and everything else is taken care of. So so then the last aspect of that is that rather than having pricing involved to like my car payment goes here, my rent payment goes here, my utility payment goes there, everything's under a single price. So when you move in, just be prepared to bring a couple suitcases, write up one monthly check, and everything else is included, all you can use style.
Heidi, one question is, how is HaaS different from leasing, short-term or long-term?
Sure. So here's how I look at long-term and short-term leasing. Short-term leasing typically for most municipalities, and it's very much a kind of a municipal convention. Short-term leasing is 30 days or under. Long-term leasing is it typically is under some agreement that is not as meaty or involved as a lease. Long-term rental involves a lease, and it's typically 30 days or longer. So you could set up housing as a service as either. Obviously, in a lease, maybe sometimes your utilities are included, but in a lease, a typical leasing situation, it doesn't go all in with, we include your utilities, we include your workspace, we include your transportation requirements. For our campus, where we're offering housing as a service, we're not doing a long-term lease, but we do have kind of a long-term stay paradigm. So we're doing 30 days or longer with a 30-day cancellation notification or a stay ending. So you have to give 30 days notice when you want to move out. There are obviously rules and some contractual aspects, but the whole idea is to offer flexibility. So we're not gonna, whereas we do have more contractual boundaries than a typical short-term stay. And like a lot of people for a short-term rental think of something like a typical Airbnb agreement. So we have a little bit more meat on the bone in terms of contractual agreements, but there's a lot of flexibility. So if you come to our campus and you sign on for 30 days and you decide it's not your cup of tea, you can leave after 30 days. You just have to give a notice when you've made that decision. If you come to our campus and you stay for 30 days and you love it and you want to stay for 3 years, you can do that too. You have the flexibility of almost kind of like month-to-month residency, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers a question.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, we're leveraging the share economy basically, and it's easier to do today too because of things like Airbnb or Zipcars. Or Lyft or Uber. There's lots of kind of micro examples of how this is working. Everybody knows about co-working spaces. So we're just bringing everything together into one campus. And really the added layer of service has to do with locating people that are similarly motivated and driven into a single environment. And that allows us to do two things. Number one, it allows us to initiate and help support a network similarly focused people so that they become collaborative peers. And it also allows us to provide a level of curation. And the curation has to do with understanding the needs of our tenants from a business perspective, and then facilitating events, opportunities for them to interact with a broader network outside of the peer network that we're offering on site. So that can help with guidance, it can help with business development opportunities, it can help with education, it can help with experience. You know, it can be a networking event, it can be a hosted podcast event. We have a video production set, we have a podcast studio, and we have video production facilities within our footprint. So what we've tried to do is create that environment where we can bring different influences in or create experiences outside the campus walls for the people that live there. And what that allows us to do is add that extra layer of focus and support to the people that live there. So it's very much an integrated, collaborative environment. It's based on the whole idea of the share economy. But then what that does is it allows us to bring that collection of people together where there's going to be personal benefit, but then mutual benefit, and add in additional layers of service, right? So, you know, any kind of curation is really a service at heart to make it that much more rewarding. And so you can monetize some of it. You know, I can say, all right, well, here's what it would typically cost to live in an apartment. So because we have co-living facilities, you know, you can evaluate, well, I can live on this campus, or I could just live in my own apartment. There's co-working space. I can live on this campus and go down to the co-working facility, or I can go, you know, rent space at WeWork or some other co-working service provider. And then there's the co-mobility. You can evaluate the decision, is it really that important for me to own a car? If the answer is maybe, or the answer is no, then an alternative is to, instead of investing, you know, $700 or $800 a month in an asset that's sitting idle much of the time, geez, maybe I have a better use for that money. I can make a better investment in my career or just save it. So those are the things that we're leveraging for this environment. The whole idea is to reduce costs and to enhance value. And a lot of the ways that people look at how they enhance value is they take a look at, what are my success factors? So is it, you know, you don't typically think about having a value attached to the place where you live other than the quality of life. You know, is it quiet? Is it convenient? Are my surroundings nice? We've added another layer of that quality of life criteria, which is, am I getting something else out of the experience of living here? And that's kind of one of our central themes, is to enhance the return on that investment of living in this certain place. We obviously we're trying to make this convenient for everybody who lives there. So if you work and live in the same place, you don't have any commute time. If you live in a place, if you change apartments and you move to another town, or you just move across town, you still have to set up all your cable, you set up your utilities, you set up your fiber if you can get it. You have to buy renter's insurance. Everything's taken care of here. So not only do you save time in terms of getting to and from work, you also save time in terms of just initializing that relocation. Everything's done for you. You just show up. So, and the other benefit is that you have as much uptime as you want to have. You can be as focused as you want to be. The amenities are available to you at all times. So you can have focused uptime to the extent that you want to. So it's all about our tenants being able to drive as much value and success out of their experience in being a member of this community for as long as they want to. And whether they decide to move on because their goals change or because they've accomplished whatever their interim goals are and they're moving onward and upward, either way, we'll have done our job. So what are some of the other things that we can do? And this is a really timely one to enhance the value of the experience on our campus. So because you've got a cohort of people with similar needs, and because you have the ability to work within kind of an economies of scale environment, you also have the ability to kind of leverage those requirements and also leverage the purchasing power that you have to provide extra services. A timely one, obviously, is helping to protect our residents during this time of pandemic. So, you know, as it mentions here, healthy environment. Well, what does that mean? Before COVID, healthy just meant helping people facilitate healthy collaboration between different members of the cohort. And obviously that's still very much true, and it's a strong talking point when we talk about healthy collaboration. We're talking about having people learn how to young people that are just evolving, learning how to form these strategic relationships, develop networks, learning how to collaborate with people outside of their immediate skill set to broaden their view of their industry, of the world, of opportunities. That still stays the same. But in addition to that, there's this whole idea of just healthy environment, literally speaking, where there's extra cleaning required, there's social distancing required. So we've had to take a mini step back just to take a look at how we're going to protect the folks in our community. But again, because we have the ability to leverage in terms of cost, we can add in the additional cleaning services, the additional software that we need to do space management, and add in the extra personal health benefits that most people wouldn't have the resources or the time to do on their own because that they don't have the budget, or it's just not realistic to spend 2 or 3 hours a day, protecting yourself from the rest of the world. Well, we talk about safe, non-intrusive yet secure. So what does that mean? That means providing some boundaries for everybody that don't feel oppressive, but are there for their personal security. So I mentioned that we have a pretty sophisticated network. Within that network, we have a number of different security layers that are mapped in. Some of that relates to physical security. So we have cameras that are appropriately located around the campus in terms of the exterior boundary doors. Everything's mapped into a latch locking system. So when you can use your cell phone or codes to go from place to place, and that actually includes right up into the personal suite that residents have. Their suite doors are on the network, just for an added measure of security. But also includes cybersecurity in terms of the network. It includes, as I mentioned, we have space management software, so it includes physical personal health security as well. And then in terms of the environment, another one of our sayings is we like to be we like to consider ourselves purpose managers. And one of our purposes in terms of being good stewards of not only the place where we live and physically reside, but also of the environment. So we tried to integrate as many environmental practices as we could in the construction of the building. We also, I mentioned, we have a shared mobility offering, which basically is a fleet of EV electric vehicles. They're powered by a PV system that's on the roof, and that allows not only the convenience and the reduced cost of being able to get around town or further to our tenants, but it also is good environmental stewardship because it reduces the amount of cars on the highway. It gets us to a much more attractive ratio of devices per person, and they're not polluting devices. They're all powered by the sun.
Heidi, that's a great connection to a question that had come in. And are you looking into offering any kind of shared services, both to have solar power the units and or any kind of battery backup systems?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Yeah, so we maxed out the PV on our system, and we built it as large as we possibly could, and we invested in the densest panel system that we could. And I'm sure that many, if not all, of the people on this webinar are kind of familiar with how panel density works in terms of being able to generate PV and the total output. So we maxed it out as much as we could. What that allows us to do is to power all of the common area devices in terms of electric, and it allows us to power the EV charging system that we have. We weren't able to build enough to power everything, all the units with the PV system, but there were some additional things that we've done just to enhance the environmental sustainability of the system. So we built a very, very efficient envelope around both buildings. There's actually two buildings. There are 11 townhouses in two separate different buildings, and the envelopes for those are highly efficient. We put an on-site water processing plant, so we have underground water retention, and we have a pretty significant filtering system. So ideally, we won't be pumping much of it, if any, water into the storm sewer. We're not treating water on site, but we are filtering, collecting, filtering, and retaining water on site. So we have a very sophisticated system on that to help out environmentally with that. And then we've gone low consumption, energy efficiency, low consumption in terms of the electric and plumbing fixtures, and highest efficiency possible on windows and that type of thing. So we maxed out everything that we could. So while we can't use it, I guess my point is while we couldn't expand the PV system to power all the units, we've reduced the load as much as we can in terms of the need for electricity in those units. Okay, so again, we built this shared community with a specific cohort in mind, and what that allows us to do again is to develop the service offerings kind of in concert with what the use is going to be and who would value those services the most. So for this particular housing working unit, this facility, we looked at freelancers, individual business owners. So that would be software engineers, video producers, outbound sales, content creators, people that are definitely really plugged into that digital environment. So they're going to highly value the fiber. They're going to highly value the creative labs that we've created around podcasting or video production. They're going to highly value some of the other things that we've added in. So we've actually put a pretty sophisticated telecommunications, teleconferencing center within every townhouse. And then there also are teleconferencing stations at other locations around the campus. So there's plenty of opportunity to have high quality teleconferencing regardless of where you are on the campus. So those are some of the basic service offerings that we've pulled in for people that are finding themselves in this group. In addition to the collaboration and the curation support to provide value-added service to these people. This is also great for startups, great for corporate teams, people with a specific focus around the use and the evolution of offerings in the digital economy. To a great degree, again, our belief is that when you bundle this together as a service, you have the opportunity to offer something to the individual or to the small group that they wouldn't be able to put together themselves because it's either too costly or it's too time consuming. But when you pull this whole collaborative together, then you have the ability to make these investments because number one, they're going to be valued, and number two, you have the economies of scale. And you've got a group of people that can help you understand how to best serve them because you've got the mindset to curate the experience even further. And there's the healthy collaboration also can be between the people that live at the campus and the people that are there to manage and provide the services. Talking about how we curate the experience, we talked about that. I already talked about that a little bit. Networking, soft skills training, marketing, really helping people that are either freelancers or creatives, especially at the beginning of their careers, understand how to use the power of collaboration to really move themselves forward and accomplish their objectives. And accomplishing their objectives can be along two different dimensions. It can be in terms of time, and it can be in terms of just generally in quality. So learning the right way, being able to implement it quickly, having the immediate sounding boards that you need to make decisions or just test strategies is tremendously valuable. And it's the kind of network that you wouldn't have available if you were working out of an apartment or you were working alone in a co-working space. The network evolves as people evolve, and yes, people will be coming in and out of the network, but these collaborative groups are the things that help people advance their thinking, learn more, and learn it more quickly, and really kind of take their ideas about what they want to do in terms of their freelance career and evolve them more effectively and more efficiently. Same thing for startups. So for startups, not only do we provide a great environment for a team, but we provide a great environment for a team within the context of a greater team. Startups always want to have exposure to VCs. They want venture capitalists. They want to have access to podcast studios. They want a live audience. They want networking events. So those are all things that we can curate on their behalf that would be very difficult or very costly for them to be able to pull off on their own. So, to the extent that a startup can do more in 3 months on our campus to get themselves ready to be in front of a venture capitalist, there's a high value to that. There's also a high value to be able to take some of these steps without any venture money, so that when they do get in front of a venture capital individual group, a networking event with many of them, they're more polished. They understand how these discussions work. They understand the market better. They're just more prepared to do better for themselves. And then in terms of actual small corporate teams, the whole process of onboarding is tremendously expensive for companies. It's expensive for a number of reasons. Most of them don't relate to direct costs as much as they relate to missed opportunities. So the worst thing in the world for a company is to onboard somebody at a pretty significant expense and then have them quit 3 or 4 months later. It's just completely sunk cost. So instead of doing that, onboarding a small team and having them have some community, having them have some focus, giving them the ability to evolve within the safe parameters of a team, as opposed to just doing everything on their own, has some real benefit to the corporation. And the biggest benefit is going to be in terms of retention. So that's another way that we curate the experience. And again, those are all services that are offered in support of the objectives of the people that live there. We always like to talk at our company about how does 1 + 1 equal 3 or 4. And so what we like to tout is that when you start to add up all these benefits, there's exponential value associated. Whether it has to do with developing soft skills that are needed in an increasingly disaggregated workplace, whether it has the impact of creating loyalty, that cements retention. Whether it has to do with people just being happy because they're within a space and a culture and a collection of amenities that makes life more appealing. The whole idea is to gather people with a similar purpose, support them with what they actually need, give them the time that they need to focus on the opportunities that matter for them, and then allow them to thrive, check in with them, and continue to evolve the service offering with a level of understanding that's based on real consumer feedback. So that's what that's an important part of our focus and growth. And that's it. So that's it in a nutshell, and I'll bet the questions will be awesome, and we'll have more of this, the details will come out in the discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. We do have plenty of questions here. Hopefully you all have been getting the answers. Eric is actually hard at work behind the scenes answering many of them, but I still want to bring them up so that way everybody can, hear the questions from you or hear the answers from you, and everybody can also hear them. So as those questions are coming in, just real quick here, I want to go over 2 things. So the first one is if you're trying to get your CEUs, remember that survey will pop up at the end, or it'll be sent to you an hour later. Please take that. Even if you don't need CEUs, we definitely appreciate all your feedback. And then for those of you watching this in the future, on demand, take that quiz with the 80% passing rate to get your Con Ed. And then again, as those questions are pouring in, we're going to get to them. Huge thanks to all of our members, our board of directors, our volunteers, and a big thanks to our top tier sponsors, Mitsubishi Electric, to hit net zero, all electric housing, the future of housing for single family, multifamily, including variable refrigerant for ventilation, as well as our other top tier sponsor, Rheem, for taking that same idea of all electric heat pump systems to water heating. A huge thanks to them and their support for allowing this to happen. So I want to go back, Heidi, to what you kind of brought up about health. And obviously, you know, some of the things that are the benefits of what you're doing, you know, probably have some concerns, especially right now, you know, during an outbreak. But, you know, whether you had implemented some of these strategies now or whether you would think differently on future projects, some of the questions are, you know, we know with air quality in our homes, especially, and especially in multifamily units where there's connectivity, you know, what kind of thoughts do you have around, you know, indoor fresh air ventilation, filtration, humidity control? We know that dry, humid air exacerbates and allows the spread of viruses, it makes them worse.
Mhm.
And so just considering that, and even unit tightness, right, transmission between the walls,
Mhm.
these things play out for not just this problem, but influenza, VOCs, pollutants that people generate within their space. So what kind of thoughts can you share about what you've done in the past, and then even what kind of things you might do differently with that?
Yeah, so I, that's a really great question. It's an astute question. We were very, very lucky. I don't know how many real estate developers that are going through this pandemic can say they were lucky, but the timing really worked out for us. And we were lucky that we had a lot of design features that kind of mitigate the issue of virus already designed into our into this campus. So a big thing is air handling, and we have a pretty robust air handling system that's constantly bringing fresh air into all of the common areas, which was hugely important. So that tempered fresh air exchange was already part of our design. We didn't have to add it in. Were we to have added it in, the pandemic happened at a time where we would have been able to, but fortunately, it was already part of the design. It was already part of the budget, and so that's a big plus for us. Another benefit is, and I'm sure if there are many contractors on this call, they know that there's a number of different ways you can design your kind of inside residential unit HVAC systems in terms of the fresh air returns. We already had a pretty sophisticated gravity based fresh air return system, and kind of central with a centralized chase that just pushes everything down and out. And so that was a huge plus for us. But in addition to that, and again, it was just good timing for us. There are basically UV filters and electrostatic systems that you can add into your ducting systems that really enhance the air management. And then also, as you already raised, you can also integrate humidity control systems so that you're neither too dry nor too the air's not too humid, which really can, all of those things together in a single system. We're very fortunate that we were at a time and a place, or had already thought of it, to integrate it. But yeah, those are all huge components that really kind of advance the effort of keeping people healthy. You know, so again, I mean, it's not to malign anybody else's HVAC system, but you know, there are benefits associated with up-to-date HVAC systems, and to the extent that those are all integrated into this property and this campus, it's a real benefit to the occupant, whether the person that is occupying the space is in the living space or in the working space.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So some questions about who specifically these spaces are for. You know, some dialogue going back and forth about the idea of small businesses, medium, larger business individuals, or even families?
Mm-hmm. I don't think this is the right space for a family. However, having said that, it's definitely on our radar to develop spaces for families using the same kind of concept. I think you have to remember that, there still is a demarc between constructing the property so that lots of people can live there or work there, and then who's actually going to be there and why are they there. So this is a good space for young people that don't have families. I mean, there's no other good way to say it. And so because the focus is very much on young professionals that are just starting out, and I'm not saying that they typically do or don't have families, but there's very much a focus on this campus of being there to be focused on your launch of a company, your launch of a career, your launch of a product or developing skill set. If I was building a campus like this for families, it would be set up differently in terms of how the living units are arranged, and it would have a whole different set of amenities that related to things that are of high value for families. So it's not to discriminate against people that are in families versus people that are very, very focused on their careers. It's just that the value of the service would be on this campus would be very, very different if you were receiving the service as a young professional versus a family that had other needs and valued services in a completely different way.
Do you, let's see here. What about the zoning required for something like this? Does it, can it be done in commercial zoning, or can it be done in residential zoning? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the zoning that's an interesting question too, in terms of how it plays out. So this is my opinion, and it's been my experience too, that the zoning, if you want to have residential, you're always going to default to what the residential zoning is. I mean, that's a kind of obvious statement. But for this particular campus, because we have, because of the construction of the underground aspect, where there was underground parking, where the EV vehicles are charged, and there's some other components of our facilities are, they're not completely underground, but some of them are kind of like at the garden level. We also had to abide by the commercial construction code. So zoning based on housing, construction based on commercial, the services that we're offering on campus, whether it's the mobility services or the co-working space or the co-working labs, are not open to the public. They're open to the residents of the campus only. So we didn't do that to accommodate any kind of particular zoning requirements, but I can see where you'd really have to lay that out very specifically with your planning department way ahead of time to clarify the degree to which people would just be, coming off the street to use the facilities, because that's where the commercial zoning code in terms of the use of the building would come into play.
And I know a lot of times for these types of projects, they use the commercial, but then defer to the residential energy code. Do you know if they ended up having to do that, like do blower door testing and everything?
Oh yeah, we have to abide by the full blower door testing. Yeah, blower door testing. Yeah, we have to do all of that stuff.
Sure. Let's see.
I mean, and also that's like the life safety things too are hugely important. And so, whereas if this was strictly a residential project, we wouldn't have had to sprinkle. But because we're built on top of a quote unquote commercial structure in terms of the shared mobility platform, we had to sprinkle, which is fine. I think that's the safe thing to do anyway.
Some questions here about the number of spaces or units, I would suspect. How many are available, how many are total, and where do you think the practicality comes in as far as, I would suspect they're talking about the floor of the number of units you could do to do something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah, I've got a couple different things I can share with you on that. So we kind of beta tested this whole idea in a single unit before we did this project. And for the beta test, much of the residential layout is the same. We have 6 suites, and what's in a suite is, your bed area, kind of the bedroom area, sitting room area, bathroom area. Everybody gets that. And in our beta test, we even took it a step further, and everybody got kind of like a kitchenette, not a full-blown kitchen, but just a kitchenette. So, microwave, coffee station, that type of thing. And then and then a lot of space for shared kitchen, living area, and that worked really, really well. People like that. So, that gave us confidence to launch this at a much larger scale. So that was for 6 people. In this development, we have 10 6-person townhouses and one like 3 or 4-person townhouse. It's a little bit smaller. So, so this is a 65-person campus. And, the numbers work out well for us. We're adding in the co-mobility, we're adding in the co-working. So there's more value than a traditional kind of like shared living or co-living space. I know that when we've compared our footprint in terms of just a living space to other places that have tried co-living, we're pretty expansive. Our facilities are bigger. Nobody has to share a bathroom. Nobody wants to share a bathroom, and in our communities, nobody has to share a bathroom. We feel really strongly about that. And so we offer more space. And I know that some of the larger co-living only communities really can't make their numbers work at less than like 80 people. That's kind of their lower threshold. So I'm not exactly sure what they're spending, where they're spending money, or what their management budgets look like. But, I feel pretty confident in us being able to manage ours at 65 people. Well.
Great. The other question here is about, how many, just by doing what you did with the car sharing, how much, any studies on how much parking you think you were able to offset? Were you able to use that then for more unit space, facility space, or was it just kind of a cherry on top?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. The thing I should have added in my last answer is that we are within 30 miles of a tier 2 market. So we're in a college town. It's a great college town, great quality of life, probably higher cost of living than a lot of college towns, but we're within 30 miles of an international airport, and we're within 30 miles of downtown Detroit. So I think that probably has a lot to do with the economics too. I don't know what it would be like to make this offering in Manhattan or San Francisco. Probably prohibitively expensive, which is why the cutoff for a tier 1 market is probably like 80 people. But to answer the question about that you just raised about the parking, Ann Arbor, just like probably most planning, zoning, building departments, is, this is an issue that they're dealing with. And the way that they've started thinking about it is to say, all right, now when you bring us a development plan, they didn't do this to us, but with respect to some of the larger projects that are being proposed, they're telling people, all right, you've got to give us the adequate parking now, but you also have to have a plan to modify that space to a different use down the road, because we realize that all of these numbers are changing. So for this project, we actually overbuilt the parking by 50%. But that's also because we envision, as we grow and develop, being able to offer our shared mobility fleet to other people outside of our immediate development. We only had to put in, I think, 11 spaces. We had 18. Believe me, we'll find a way to utilize that space as things go on. But I would look at this project more as a proof of concept that will generate data about utilization and how that utilization changes over time, as opposed to a project where there is some discrete and reliable data set that said, here's how many parking spaces you had to build.
Another question here, just back kind of the solar, since you had mentioned you maxed out the roof for it, was there any thought about being able to offer some sort of a community solar service? So for example, saying, hey, we can help you offset the rest of your space and be 100% renewable by buying into solar somewhere else as maybe as an aggregate.
Mm-hmm. We would definitely be interested in that. We have not seen that service offering here regionally. That could have to do with the number of sun days that we have in Michigan. But having said all of that, it's super important to our company, and part of this is just driven by our experience over the last 8 years, and doing all of our development in a very tight radius. We realize that it's our responsibility to be community leaders, and so we're very active in our neighborhood association, and there are a lot of very active environmentalists, I guess, for lack of sustainability interested people. So I would not rule anything like that out. If we start seeing opportunities for leadership in terms of aggregation programs, we'll be right there trying to help get it organized. So yeah, and there's lots of being in the size market that we are, there's lots of great opportunities, and we're actually starting to get involved in downsite infrastructure for drone delivery, and we're super excited about that. But that's very much that the implementation of that infrastructure is very much like the implementation of broadband, which is something that I've been involved in for most of my career. So it's basically aggregation, last mile delivery, and then step down services to figure out how to fill out the infrastructure to make an alternative delivery system work. So we'll stay at the forefront of things like that, and try to bring our neighbors along as well. So we'll see what happens.
Great, Heidi. Well, we are at our time. A huge thanks again to you and Forum for putting this on and talking us through all this. Just real quick before we wrap up, where can people go to get more information or contact you or learn more?
So yeah, the last page of our deck, I don't know if I'm still displaying or not, or if I'm still sharing or not, but on the last page, if you go to prenticeforum.com, you can find us, and then there's some other direct contact information on that last page.
Great. Heidi, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. And public service announcement, please stay in, please shelter in place if you don't need to go out. And hopefully we can beat this thing, get through this thing, and we can all see you someday in person. So thank you again. Take care. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Goodbye.